Imagine a period after a Great War, when the very promise of freedom and equality was under siege, not on a battlefield, but in the streets of towns and rural communities. In the wake of the Civil War, many citizens in the South, particularly newly freed African Americans, faced organized campaigns of intimidation and violence designed to strip them of their hard-won rights. The primary purpose of President Ulysses S. Grant's enforcement acts was to protect the civil and political rights of African Americans guaranteed by the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution, particularly from the widespread terrorism orchestrated by the Ku Klux Klan and other white supremacist organizations. These acts empowered the federal government to intervene directly when states failed to do so, ensuring that the newly established legal equality could be actively enforced. This federal intervention became necessary because, despite the passage of landmark constitutional amendments, many state governments in the former Confederacy were unwilling or unable to protect their black citizens. Local law enforcement and judicial systems were often complicit with or intimidated by groups like the Klan, allowing violence and disenfranchisement to continue unchecked. The enforcement acts, sometimes referred to as the Ku Klux Klan Acts, leveraged the enforcement clauses of the Reconstruction amendments, asserting that Congress had the authority to ensure these fundamental rights were not abridged by private action or state inaction. These acts allowed the federal government to suspend habeas corpus, deploy federal troops, and prosecute individuals who conspired to deprive citizens of their civil rights, moving these cases from hostile state courts to federal jurisdiction. For instance, the first Enforcement Act of 1870 made it a federal crime to interfere with a citizen's right to vote. The third and most robust act, passed in 1871, explicitly targeted conspiratorial groups like the Klan, authorizing the president to use military force and to declare martial law in areas where such groups undermined constitutional protections. A key component of these laws was the introduction of new legal principles, such as making it a federal offense to conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any citizen in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him by the Constitution or laws of the United States. This innovative approach transformed what were often considered local crimes into federal offenses when they targeted civil rights, fundamentally altering the balance of power between states and the national government in protecting individual liberties. It established a precedent for federal oversight in safeguarding civil rights that would resonate for decades. Ultimately, Grant's enforcement acts represented a determined effort to solidify the gains of the Civil War and Reconstruction. They provided crucial, albeit temporary, federal protection for Black Americans and their white allies, demonstrating the national government's commitment to upholding the constitutional rights of all citizens. These acts were vital in shaping the early legal framework for civil rights enforcement, even as political will to sustain them eventually waned.